Okay, Derbyites, I am here with editor Daniel Montgomery. I am Marcus Dixon, and we are going to be talking about the Emmy race for drama guest actress. This is always one of the best categories. Sometimes it goes to people we never thought it would go to. Last year, for example, a lot of us thought Jane Fonda for The Newsroom, but it went to Carrie Preston for The Good Wife. Something like that could happen this year as well. The nominees for this year's Good Drama Guest Actress category are Allison Janney for Masters of Sex. She submitted the episode Brave New World. Jane Fonda is back for The Newsroom, and her episode is Red Team 3. Diana Rigg is up for Game of Thrones for her second year for The Lion and the Rose. Margot Martindale is also back for her second year on The Americans. Her episode is Behind the Red Door. And then we have two Kates. We have Kate Mara for House of Cards, submitting the episode called Chapter 14, which was the season 2 premiere. And then we have Kate Burton for Scandal, and she submitted the episode called A Door Marked Exit. So Daniel, you and I both watched all 6 episodes back to back to back. We tried to mimic the Emmy process of these viewing panels that they do. And what are your picks? Who could win this thing based on the episodes, and who's going to lose? So what's your 1 through 6?
My 1 through 6 might surprise you a little bit. I think it's sort of in 3 tiers. You have 2, then 2 in the middle, and then 2 it's sort of at the bottom. Number 1, I've got, probably no surprise to most people, she's leading our prediction center, Allison Janney for Masters of Sex. I think she's on top. I think the one person who could spoil her, drumroll please, Kate Burton, actually, for Scandal. And then number 3, I've got Jane Fonda for The Newsroom. Number 4, I've got Kate Mara for House of Cards. Then for 5, I've got Margot Martindale for The Americans. And in 6th place, I have Diana Rigg for Game of Thrones.
You may be surprised. We have a very, very similar lineup, unlike the last Slugfest we did where we were all across the board. This time, I agree. I think Allison Janney is in the number 1 position. She submitted a really, really good tape, good episode submission, that is. Kate Burton surprised me. She has been nominated here before for another Shonda Rhimes show, Grey's Anatomy. She lost that, but now she's up for Scandal. And she has like a really, really good first scene. And I think that's really, really important, especially if you have, if your Emmy viewing panel is full of older judges who may get bored easily. To come out strong like she does in her episode is really, really important. In fact, it's the exact opposite of my number 3 choice, Jane Fonda, who is in a 57-minute episode, but she only appears in the last 3.5 minutes. So they have to watch almost an entire hour before they get to her. And that could be a problem. We'll talk about that later. But 4th and 5th, I have Margot Martindale and Kate Mara. And then 6th, I have Diana Rigg. But okay, let's start at the bottom. Why do we both have Diana Rigg in 6th place?
Probably both for the same reason, I'm guessing. It's not because she's an untalented actress, obviously. It's because she is barely in it. And it's not like she's barely in it and she, has a couple of moments to shine. She's barely in it. She has one scene of dialogue. I think it comes 30 minutes into the episode with Tywin Lannister, Charles Dance, and they're talking about paying bills. And then she has another scene, another bit of dialogue with Sansa. And she's sort of commiserating about the wholesale murder of the entire Stark family. And then, then there's the Purple Wedding, the wedding of Joffrey and Margaery. And she's in the background for most of those entire scenes. She'll maybe, the camera will maybe cut to her and she'll give, an expression. And that's pretty much the entire episode for her. It's not nearly enough.
Right. And even that scene you mentioned with Tywin, it is very confusing. I've seen every episode of Game of Thrones, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And I can't imagine a normal voter who just happens to pop in this episode is going to know what they're talking about or even care. And the problem with Diana Rigg's character isn't that she's bad. She's very, very good at this role. It's just that the role is not as big as it could be. I mean, I think she was only in 2 episodes this year. Is that right? Maybe.
She might have been in more, maybe 3 or 4, maybe, but probably not more than that.
I think even if all of her scenes from all of the episodes had been tied together, I still don't think she could win, just because her character doesn't allow her to emote in the way that Emmy voters like to reward. She kind of does it behind the scenes. We won't talk about what happens after this episode because I don't want to spoil people. But Joffrey's wedding ends with his death, and then there are scenes with her regarding her character in the next one that might have had an influence on the voting if they had been in this episode. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I wonder if I don't know how much screen time she has in that compared to this, but that conversation she has with her granddaughter in that episode, I think that would have been a better choice, maybe. I mean, to see that scene compared to seeing her scenes in this episode, I really think that one would have had more impact. Though I still don't think it probably would have been enough to win.
All right. And you're right, she is in the background a lot. So if this had been like the old rules where these guest episodes would be edited down to just the scenes, it would have all these long scenes with her just kind of sitting there in the background with her weird headdress on. And I think that would have hurt her. But now with this, where we go to the forest to see what's his name, Alfie Allen's character, Theon Greyjoy. We follow him for a little bit. We follow Bram and the wolves for a little bit. I mean, she's hardly in this thing. So let's go to, you have Margot Martindale in 5th, right? And I have her in 4th. It's hard for me to compare her episode this year. It's hard for me not to compare it to the one last year. The one last year was so great for her. She dressed up. She got to do the spy thing. She got to kill a guy. She pretended to be this old grandma knocking on his door, and that was so great for her. This episode, really, she's very forgettable.
Yeah, and it's really probably the best she had. I mean, it's not, again, like Diana Rigg, it's not Margot Martindale's fault. She was doing the Millers. She only had maybe 2 or 3 episodes of the Americans, and she only had a couple of scenes in each episode. She didn't really have the material to really win this award. She, great as she is, she got in mostly because she's on sort of an Emmy roll. They really like her right now, so they're keeping nominating her. She has, her first scene, talking about the murder of the family and who might be responsible. It's really just plot. Then she has the scene in the van, and it's more of the same. There's not really any meat there until the very end of the episode, where she's in the car with Kerry Russell, talking about, in more detail what she's afraid might have happened, how she's, feels responsible. And that's really good, and it's really subtle, and it's really brief, and then it's over. And it's like Diana Rigg. She's giving something that Diana Rigg doesn't, but there's still not enough there.
After I watched the episode, I did a little write-up on it, and I thought, if we had seen the storyline where she, falls in love with this guy and accidentally, or not accidentally, but tells him that she's a KGB agent, this is what she tells Kerry Russell in the car at the end. If we had seen all of that storyline, that would have been amazing. That could have been an Emmy winner for her, watching Claudia fall in love. But we didn't get any of that. And maybe that is because she was on the Millers and she only did, I think, 3 episodes this season. But I think her reward is the nomination. I don't think a lot of people were even predicting her because of her lack of screen time and lack of impact. And, I think she's a safe bet in 5th or 6th place. I have her actually in 4th. In 5th, I have Kate Mara for House of Cards. What do you think of her performance?
She has the benefit of screen time. She's definitely not, in this category, she probably, behind Janney, probably has the 2nd most screen time, or she might even have even more than Janney does. I'm not sure how the minutes would count up, but it's all detective work, which isn't bad necessarily, but there's no real character arc there. There's no real emotional arc there. She's, talking to her fellow reporters about, getting this evidence, and she's trying to find this witness, and she's talking to Kevin Spacey. She's trying to grill him with questions. it's good and it's interesting, and then of course, I don't think we can talk about the episode without spoiling it, of course.
Right.
Then
Spoiler
he's
warning.
trained.
Right.
So yeah, and that's it. I think she mostly got the nomination because she was in the guest category this year, which is a less competitive field, and voters were still sort of rewarding her for the good work she did in season one. So she gets some stuff to do, and she's pretty good. I have her in fourth, middle of the pack, but there's no real impact there, and there's no real range there before she gets the EPO.
She has two great scenes with Kevin Spacey. The one in the park, and then the one that train station scene is just fantastic. And I didn't see it coming at all when I watched this episode the first time. So this episode does have a kind of shock value. I can't imagine there's a voter watching this that doesn't know that she's going to die. But if that is the case, that could get her an extra point or two. We've mentioned before that a lot of people that die in their Emmy episodes go on to win Emmys. I could think of Jelko Ivanek for Damages. But then again, a lot of people lose Emmys for dying, so there's no real rhyme or reason to it. I think her biggest obstacle is that there are three people, I think we both actually agree, there are three people that have better episodes, not even that, better, more impact, and they hit you more, and she just falls short in that regard, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, so, I absolutely agree.
So let's talk about Jane Fonda and her screen time issue. Is it an issue or is it not? Because I think it is.
I think it is an issue. I think it would be more of an issue if the competition were different. Because you have someone like Diana Rigg who has screen time issues and she doesn't really do much with it. Margot Martindale has screen time issues and she doesn't do much with it. Kate Mara has a lot of screen time. She doesn't do much with it.
That's a good point, actually.
and what helps Jane Fonda is that it's all concentrated. And I'm thinking as someone who, I had seen all of these episodes except for Kate Burton's. I had seen all of them when they initially aired. So I just skimmed them to watch these scenes. And if you're a voter, especially in this digital age, it's easy to scan through an episode. It's much more frustrating to try and find Diana Rigg and her scenes than to just fast forward to minute 54 of the newsroom and just watch Jane Fonda go. Because then you could just because she takes over that scene as soon as she walks on. And it's very brief. It's 3.5 minutes, and it's a little goofy. I feel like if it had a little more dramatic heft, for her, it would be more competitive. But she's high. She's talking about Daniel Craig. It's a little wacky. But she's good, and she's really compelling when she's on screen. I thought her episode last year was better. I thought she'd win, even though I knew Carrie Preston was a threat. This year, I'd say she probably is still a threat. I mean, the Jane Fonda factor, she's a huge star, and she does deliver. But yeah, she really needed, if that scene were 7 minutes long instead of 3, I mean, she just needed a little more oomph.
Right. Well, what if I know they don't write episodes to win Emmys. I know Aaron Sorkin probably, I hope he doesn't think that in his mind, but if he had written the episode so that 3.5 minute scene is the very first scene you see, and then, everything else happens after that, you wouldn't really know what they're talking about, but on the newsroom, they always play with time. You often don't know what they're talking about until they do a flashback or a flash forward. If that was the very first scene, I might have her in second place, but the fact that it's the very last scene does hurt her. But you're right. I mean, you could just go on YouTube and type in Jane Fonda Red Team 3. That was the episode name. And there it is, the 3.5 minute scene. I don't know if HBO knows that. They may not be happy to know that, but yeah, that's all you have to do if you're a voter. You don't have to watch that whole DVD.
I don't think it hurts her really where the scene is in the episode. I think it helps that it's all together in one chunk. If Aaron Sorkin really wanted to write this to win her an Emmy, I think he should have given her maybe 5 more minutes and just gave her a big, long monologue. Don't even let anyone else talk. Just let her hold court for 10 minutes, and she'd really have a good chance at this.
And Aaron Sorkin knows how to win Emmys. Allison Janney won 4 Emmys on The West Wing. So did I'm blanking. Bradley Whitford,
John Spencer, Richard Schiff, Alan Alda.
Right. and now Jeff Daniels won last year for The Newsroom. So this guy's a pro at this kind of stuff. But I was going to say one other thing. Oh, so Jane Fonda's scene, let's pretend voters just fast forward. They know she's at the end and they fast forward. They may not understand what she's talking about, but I don't think that matters. I don't think the lawsuit matters or the people, Will and Mac and Charlie resigning. I don't think that matters because your eyes are on her the whole time. I couldn't look away, and I've seen that scene before. And you're right, she's wacky. She's funny. She makes the McMack line, which is so stupid, but I smiled at it. And she looks at herself in the mirror, and she's like, oh, my makeup is still on, or something like that. And then her very last line that ends the episode, where she's like, get it back. Like, get America's trust back. She had me. But, yeah, Kate Burton, we talked about her a little bit. Kate Burton opens the episode of Scandal. It's probably a 5-minute opening scene, which is the opposite of Fonda's problem. And it's very, very meaty. What did you think? You have her in second, so you must have agreed with me that it was really good.
Yeah, it opens with her big money scene, and that absolutely helps her. I wouldn't say, I mean, you know, we've talked about this a little on Facebook. I'm not a huge Scandal fan. I've watched the episode for these Emmys. It's, you know, if Jane Fonda was wacky, this is wacky to another level. You know, it's ranting, raving, she's screaming. It's over the top, but so is Dan Bucatinsky last year, and he won. And
what about the weird editing they did? Really annoyed me, where it would show them talking and then it would edit a scene of her just sitting there and then go back to that distracted me. I hate that they do that on the show.
I understand exactly what they were going for, and it made me appreciate great editing because it just sort of felt like they were trying to go for an effect where it's sort of like time is mixed up and she's crazy and she's out of her head, but it just feels like they threw the scenes into a Cuisinart and they just turned it on.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any visual sense, really. I don't hold that against her as an actor. I know what they were trying for. I don't think they pull it off. But yeah, I mean, she has that big opening scene. She has a big closing scene too, or I don't know if it closed the episode, but a later scene in the episode where she yells that, you know, her husband, who she's just murdered, he's in hell. He was a sodomite. In between there is the problem. I think she sort of goes into this catatonic stage, and you know, where she's not really emoting a lot, and there's not even a lot internally there. It's just sort of, you know, sitting there sort of blank-eyed, you know, million-mile stare, and you know, that's where I think her vulnerability is.
Right. I could just imagine a voter. I mean, they love Scandal so much, and I could just imagine a voter watching that scene and going, "Oh, she's got my vote," and just turning it off, and not even watching the rest of the episode. By the way, the rest of the episode, we have to talk about it because these episodes are not edited down anymore. It's the one where Olivia finds out her mother's alive, and it's the whole Alias thing. Did you watch Alias?
I did, yeah.
I mean, Sydney thinks her mom's dead, but no, she's actually alive, and oh, she's actually a terrorist. It's the exact same story, and I had major issues with that, but that's another rant. But Kate Burton is really good on the show, and we mentioned earlier that she is a previous Emmy nominee for Grey's Anatomy, so they really like her. I really like her. I think she's perfect in this role. She does the accent. She does the southern accent the whole time. And by the way, her husband, what's his name? Jack Coleman.
Yeah.
He tries to do a southern accent, but he wasn't as good as her.
Yeah, well, both of their southern accents felt like a little "I do declare." I mean, I got a little bit of that from both of them, but it just sort of goes with the nature of that show.
Right. I will defend Scandal till my dying breath. I love that show, but I will admit sometimes it's not perfect. But look, how many Emmys did The Wire win, Daniel?
Yeah, that's the problem. The Wire has 2 Emmy nominations ever. Scandal now has 5. Scandal has all for acting, and The Wire had worse acting than Scandal. We learned from the TV Academy. So that's again, like your Alias rant. That's another rant for another day.
Right. But it's just the 2 of us, so we can talk about all we want today. But this year, I think Kate Burton has a great chance. And we did another Slugfest earlier. You guys can go check out at Gold Derby, where we also agree maybe Joe Morton could win as well for playing Olivia's father. So Scandal could win 2 Emmys this year. It could also win Kerry Washington, so they could win 3. Who knows? But okay, we've kind of saved her for last. Let's talk about Allison Janney. Why do you have her in first place?
I have her in first place. I was kind of nervous when watching these episodes because she would be my number one choice easily, not just for this one episode, but for her entire guest arc on Masters of Sex. She was absolutely extraordinary the whole season. The whole season she was in, she sort of shows up halfway through the season. But I knew that, I mean, it's not a big emotional character. And after watching Kate Burton's episode, I knew that she was going to out-emote Allison Janney in a big way. I still think Allison Janney is a lot subtler than Kate Burton. I still think she's better. I still think it's a better episode. It's a better performance. It does have strong impact, even though it's not big, yelling, stabbing, editing impact. That one scene of her, especially that centerpiece scene in the office with Masters and Johnson, where she's disqualified from the study because she's never had an orgasm, she reveals, and you just see, like, behind the eyes, it's just so subtle how she plays that. She doesn't want to show that she is as lonely as she is, and that she is as frustrated as she is, and that she's as heartbroken as she is, that she's too damaged, in a sense, to even participate in this study. It's just so heartbreaking, and
they could have cut that scene off right there, but they made it go like an extra 15 seconds where we see her walk down the hallway, we see her open the elevator, get in, and then just as the door closes, she breaks down, and that's where I'm like, she's got it. That was it. That's the end.
Yeah, and it's such a good arc for her too. She goes not just there. She starts where she's sort of really lonely with her husband. Her husband gives her that peck on the nose, and then goes to like sleep in another room. And then later, of course, with Dr. Langham, Teddy Sears, that's such a sweet, quiet, intimate moment between them, and then in the car, and it's just such a really complete, full emotional arc for her that. If she had bigger competition this year, if she were competing in last year's race, where I think there were a lot stronger competitors, or a lot stronger episodes anyway, I think she might be vulnerable. Here, though, I still feel relatively confident calling her the front runner.
Right. Yeah, people always get mad when I say this race is over, but I kind of think this race is over. Maybe. I'll give it to her 95%. She's going to win with 95% of my vote. I could see maybe 4% going to Kate Burton, 1% Jane Fonda, and no one else gets anything. So that's how much. I think that's how much of a lock she is. And if the voters actually watched the whole season, which maybe they did, because Bo Bridges got a nomination, and so did Lizzie Kaplan. So they obviously like the show, and they know her arc from beginning to end. I think she has it. I mean, I'm always curious. I wonder what you think. Do you think voters strictly look at the episodes, or do they maybe weigh them against the whole season?
I think it depends on the panel you get. Whether the judges are familiar with the season or not. If they are, then I think Allison Janney's an even stronger bet, because I mean it's not just like now that we're like, oh, she was really good. She was the talk of that season to a great extent, and she would have gotten the nomination even if they hadn't watched it. She's one of those names that they would just check. I think one of the most heartening things is that Lizzie Kaplan got in, because she's an actor who, based on name recognition, she shouldn't have gotten in unless voters were watching. So even though get nominated for Best Drama, which I think they should have, or writing and directing, someone was watching this, and someone knows how good it is, and without the really, really strong alternative here, I really think she probably has it. That always scares me at the Emmys, though, because I just look at every list now and think, all right, which one is the Merritt Weaver this year? Because I mean, it depends on the panel. Some people might be Kate Burton fans from Grey's Anatomy and have admired her career up to this point, and they might want an excuse to give her an Emmy, especially if they know that Allison Janney already has 4. I mean, that's not uncommon knowledge.
Right. I remember last year we were doing our viewing panel Slugfest, and we were talking about who would win Emmys, last year, 2013. And I remember Chris saying, I don't know who's going to win now, but next year, Allison Janney's going to win. Because the episode Brave New World had just aired. I think my timing is correct, or my memory is correct. But, people have been talking about this performance for a year now, so it'll be good to finally see it rewarded, and I think it will be.
Yeah,
And of course, she could win 2 Emmys this year. She's also up for a Mom for Comedy Supporting Actress. So, of all the categories at the Emmys for actresses, she already has Drama Lead Actress. She already has Drama Supporting Actress. We think she's going to win this one, Drama Guest Actress. And she could win Comedy Supporting Actress. So now after this year, she will only need Comedy Lead and Comedy Guest, and then she will have all 6, and that's crazy. She's deserving too. She's really, really great.
Yeah, and then after that, she'll have to book a mini series in a lead role, and then a mini series in a supporting role. She'll have to host a reality show, of course, and then do a voiceover narration for a documentary, and then she'll be nominated for all of it.
And then she could pull a Laverne Cox and do all of the guy categories too. So yeah, do you have any final thoughts on this category? Let's pretend we're doing our dream Emmy ballot, which you could do at Gold Derby, where we pick our favorites of the year. If these 6 were on your dream ballot, what would be your order of your favorites, basically?
My order actually wouldn't be all that different. Unlike we talked about comedy guest actor earlier. My order was very different in my predictions to my actual preferences. In this case, it's mostly the same. The major difference is that I'd move Kate Burton down, just because that's sort of over the top, outlandish style. I mean, sometimes it works for me. In this context, it didn't really work for me, so I'd have her down in 5th over Diana Rigg, and then I'd have Martindale in 4th, although maybe I'd move her up to 3rd instead of Kate Mara. Jane Fonda 2nd, and Allison Janney, just really no competition for me in 1st.
Again, we have a very similar order. Allison Janney is my favorite, and Jane Fonda, but I'm gonna put Kate Burton in 3rd because I did love her on Grey's Anatomy. I think she's overdue. I love when character actors and actresses finally get their recognition. It's one of my favorite things. So she's in my 3rd. Margot Martindale 4th. Kate Mara 5th. Diana Rigg 6th. I just really wish that Diana Rigg's role had been bigger. And I know that's just a problem with Game of Thrones in general, that they have so many storylines and so many actors and actresses that it's hard for people to stand out. Alrighty, so those are our thoughts on Drama Guest Actress. You can go to Gold Derby and see our thoughts on the other guest races this year. And stay tuned, we're going to do Slugfests for all of these categories. So yeah, we'll see you next time.